up, everybody? I'm Mark Wynn.
I'm Tina Gomez.
And we're
Team Anamex.
Team Anamex, in case you didn't know.
So, you want to learn how to self-publish in 8 minutes.
Well, it ain't gonna happen. Well, it won't happen in 8 minutes, but we're going to try and give you all the steps it takes to achieve that. So the final draft is what your script will look like after it's been edited, proofread, trimmed down. It's pretty much how you want it to be before you either before it's printed.
Now you want to select a publisher and decide whether you want to go with traditional publishing or you want to be a self-publisher. We personally are self-publishers, which has its perks, but traditional publishing also has some really good perks.
Which we'll get into shortly.
Okay.
But first, even before you decide on your on how you want to publish, you have to decide on whether you want to go with a print-on-demand service or a service that allows you to print a certain amount of books. Now this is mainly a self-publishing kind of thing that you worry about, but pretty much the difference is print a certain amount of books, then you have to pay for that bulk amount. And what if you need more, or what if you don't sell enough and you either lost money or don't have the opportunity to make more money because you don't have enough books? So we recommend going with a print-on-demand service, which will allow books to be printed as they're bought. So that way it's low cost for not only your publisher, but you as well. Now, traditional versus self-publishing. So traditional publishing is probably, you know, what most people know. And traditional publishing is pretty much when you're an author and you sign a book deal, and for the most part your publisher will take care of everything else around your book's production, as far as your editing, as far as your some of your marketing. Sometimes even your cover designs, just everything about the entire putting together process of the book.
So with self-publishing, you're pretty much doing everything on your own. Now we're a team, so we can back each other up, but it's pretty much everything in this list, such as designing your cover and making sure that everything's within the trim size, because when they get your book and they produced it, they're going to chop some off. With your cover, you want to make sure your placement of things, like the placement of the font, and like I said, you want to make sure your image isn't cut off, whatever art you decide to go with.
Make sure you have a good logo. Cover is also not just the front cover, but it's also the spine and the back cover, which it's actually one big thing, right, like this, that you have to design bit by bit. So
with self-publishing, you design.
Yeah.
Being cover designing, you can do that yourself, or you can hire somebody to do it for you if you don't have the means to do it, or can't design it yourself.
Make sure you pay the artists that you go to. Right,
respect them.
Respect artists out there. So next we're going to talk about the ISBN number. And ISBN number is this number right here above the barcode on the back of a book. And this pretty much allows your book to be purchased in a store or just purchased in any online store, and also allows for your book to be found in online book databases, as well as being ranked among other books and etc.
You can't make a book without an ISBN number.
No, you need an ISBN number to make a book. But you can either buy one, which can be costly, especially if you're planning on making a lot of books, not just 1 or 2 or 3, or if you self-publish, there are times where they can provide one for you for free, but there are pros and cons to both. Like a con to having a free one Well, a pro to having a free one is you don't have to pay for it. The cons to having a free ISBN number is if, say, your book just blows up and just becomes crazy super huge, then technically your publisher that provided you the ISBN number becomes partial owner of your title. So that means that they have a say in whatever you can and can't do with that title. And if it's important to you to have full control over your title, then maybe you might want to just buy the ISBN number where you have total and free control, although it is costly.
You upload your manuscript, you have to follow certain guidelines, which, like we mentioned before, the trim size, you want to make sure everything's within the trim size. They will provide you a template if you go with self-publishing. Our self-publisher, they have a template that you can follow where if you have a bleed or if you have the trim size, you have to make sure that you follow the guidelines. Or there's a possibility that when you upload it, they will reject it, and then you'll have to do it again and figure out what's wrong with it and correct it, and that can take some time.
Yeah, they won't publish a book that doesn't meet their guidelines and requirements. So you got to make sure that you're reading, doing your research, and figuring out exactly how to satisfy the publisher.
And you also want to follow the guidelines when you upload your cover as well. Okay, so this is something that we did in the beginning of publishing our books, is when you get the okay, the approval, you can order proof copies, which is pretty much the final product of your book, but before it's being like sold everywhere, you approve that. So we recommend, at least in the beginning, or if you're new to this, you order proof copies of your book. That way you can see yourself what the final product will be. And we've had things where, here's an example of one of our books. Sometimes the cover of your book can like bleed over into the spine, and you don't want that in your final product.
Yeah, we've also had sometimes the barcode might be out of place, or you know, something weird that isn't quite right, or some things in the interior.
Yeah, some things in the interior.
That's, I don't know, maybe some pages are blurry or didn't get printed out quite right.
Like an example, it's not on this one because it's corrected, but this page is what you call a full bleed page, and sometimes like it won't bleed all the way to the edges. That's what full bleed means. And we had like spaces at the bottom, so you can make sure and go through that that's correct, that everything's bled correctly. Just make sure everything is good before your final product is sent to stores or sent wherever, you know, you're gonna have it.